Navigating the midlife maze and lessons learned along the way. so, what I'd like to do for this podcast episode, those of you who are listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you've already heard my intro to this episode. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, you are just kind of here in the space. But this episode is special. One is that it is my first solo episode of season two. Usually I do one solo episode um, every month, usually kind of the first of the month. But we had so many gems and so many special people to bring into the space. I had to wait until now, and I decided to do this right before my birthday. Um, this is coming out, this is being released on November 9th, but my birthday is November 11th, 11/11. And so this year I am turning 51. Last year was like the biggie. It was the rah, rah, rah. It was me really going outside of my usual, outside of my comfort zone. And I planned a variety of things to celebrate, but three major things that I did, two of which I made public. One I did not, but I'm going to share today. Um, because inside I knew, and 50 is critical, right? That's 50 whole years of living, of breathing, of having relationship loss, gains, careers. I mean, it's just so much, right? 50 years. And it's interesting because prior to 50, like each year is like, okay, yeah, yeah. But I never looked at it as the whole, right? Like, oh, I've had 40 years, or I've had 47 years or 30 years. I never really looked at it like that. But when I turned 50, I was like, girl, 50 years? Ew. So I really went out my box. And so one of the things I did was I did a trip to Los Angeles and I invited girlfriends who I have made along the way in these 50 years who live in various states and cities. And I intentionally invited those who do not live in the state that I lived, who do not live in Chicago, only because those who live in Chicago I tend to be able to see more. But those who don't, who have been a part of my 50-year journey or then 50-year journey, I wanted to create a beautiful space for us to connect. And so we met in LA, we did a sensuality dance class that was amazing. And then we had a private catered dinner by another girlfriend of mine who's a chef and based in LA. And we ate and we drank wine and we laughed. And it was beautiful. We had an amazing cake. It was just so perfect, and it went perfectly. Like, I couldn't have asked. I mean, there was so much flow, so much rhythm, so much joy. It was really well. And that was kind of my pre-birthday fun, and then I went on, to do some traveling, and that traveling I did some solo traveling. And so if you go back to season 1, those of you who are new to the podcast, I do some solo episodes, talking about solo travel, reflecting on what it taught me, and then just kind of reflecting on turning this age. But one thing that I did not share that I did, yeah, one thing that I did not share publicly, and I only shared with a couple of people, um, was that I actually did a nude photo shoot for my 50th as well. And those pictures, I really did it for me. I did not do it and plaster it up, picture up on my wall. It's not up as a screensaver. I did it, posted on social media. I didn't even mention it on social media. And I'm only mentioning it now because it kind of feeds into what I want to talk about today. Because I'm going to go over 5 big lessons that I learned. And doing that nude photo shoot, I wanted to do it for so many reasons, and I don't want to spend all my time talking heavily about it. But I wanted to mainly begin to explore myself in a more not literal naked, but vulnerable way. I now understand it a year later that there was a lot that I was going to be facing. And I think subconsciously I recognize it's time, Kenya, for you to peel these layers back and get more nude and vulnerable for yourself. For yourself. Not so much maybe for the other person, because the vulnerability, I've always felt like I've done that for others, but I realized I needed to do it for me, um, for the things that I still want and wanted to experience. And it was a beautiful experience. It was a photographer I had been following through on Instagram for years. And, his shots are always so eloquent and show brown bodies so beautifully, all shapes, sizes, and hues of the African diaspora, hues of Black people, women, men, couples, just beautiful. And so, as divine timing would have it, we had the opportunity to connect literally right before my birthday and right before I was going out of the country. And so it was a special, intimate, extremely vulnerable, but he made me feel extremely safe, space to take what I considered art, really, ultimately. So, and then I went to Cartagena, Colombia, and just had an amazing time. And so, then 51 took, or not 51, 50 took off, and it's raced to 51. And, the year of 50 has been interesting and very much what I titled this episode, a midlife maze. It's been a bit of a maze because there have been so many changes that I completely did not see. Did not see at all, that are beautiful, that have happened and turned out beautiful. And then there are these changes that I did not see, that were not beautiful at all, that were really, really hard, really, really hard. And in the hard, still showed me so much grace. I learned so much. And I'm like, woo, if this is what it's gonna be like in your 50s, each year, whoa. Now, granted, I think the whole world is on fire right now, literally and figuratively. So it's an interesting time just to be alive, right? Um, but yeah, there was just a lot. So I there are many lessons, many, many lessons, but I'm only gonna share 5 main themes with you. And um I made sure I made notes on this because I really wanted to be sure that I'm really sticking with these 5 lessons. I will, because I will drift. I will start talking about, because it's been a maze, because it's felt like a maze. It has felt like this happened. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go this way. And then it was like, nope, that's a dead end. You gotta go this way. I was like, oh, okay. And then this is like, oh, this is a whole new level of going. Oh, I didn't know that door even went that way. It's just been, it's been a trip. So I did keep my notes. And so the first lesson was around self care. Now, you have to understand, I am a holistic wellness coach. My business is finding your voice, health and wellness. Okay. This podcast is finding your voice after 40, but I actually work multi generationally. I do have a niche where I do have specific programs for women over 40, but I work at this point with anybody, really. Um, and the big foundation has always been about self care. So here I am, I'm providing self care coaching. I've academically studied this. So it's, I feel scholarly in it. I've had my own, things I've had to learn about it. But it was a whole nother level of self care that I had to take on after I turned 50. And it's not just the obvious physical, right? That your body is changing, especially as women. Um, But I went through it started off physical to get my attention. And this is what I want the lesson that I want you to hear is by the time our bodies are giving us signals, pain, tension, disease, um, just aches, not working, whatever. By the time it's doing that, the body is the last score. It's the last score. So that means that somehow you are not necessarily addressing, I was not necessarily addressing the spiritual, the mental, the emotional cues that were suggesting that I needed to shift my self care. And like I said, I coach self care. I breathe the importance of it and thought I was doing it for me until 50. And it said, no, go deeper, Kenya. Go deeper. That's not enough. And so it came out in physical manifestations. And I'm not going to go into all my health stuff, but I did have some health things that really immediately after turning 50, like literally that November, right when I got back for a vacation, was having some issues. And I had to take a very holistic approach to get to the root. And when I got to the root, it really came down to you have to think of self care differently for yourself. And you have to take it, not take it, you have to take it more intimately and more specifically to you, Kenya. And so my self care practices have really changed. I'm still a work in progress. I realized I was having a lot more anxiety, that the anxiety was manifesting very physically. Um, Definitely a disconnect for me. I have felt stress before and been able to articulate it, and I didn't really quote unquote feel the stress emotionally, and it was showing itself up physically. So me understanding how relearning how stress shows up in my body, learning how anxiety shows up for me. I don't have the panic attacks. I don't have even necessarily nervousness. It's different. I have a racing mind, like race, 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 race. A constant sense of quiet fear, not loud fear, quiet fear, especially at night. Um, just, I also, just in my body, tension, certain areas of my body. And for me, it went all the way down into my kind of reproductive health. And then that's when you get into chakras. It was a whole deal that I had to learn. And I had to seek assistance and I got someone to help me. And I got a physical therapist on my team. I got a little bit deeper with my therapist and spiritual coach. And I started through astrology. And that, my dear, is what brings me to my next lesson, okay, which is spiritual practice. So, astrology for me, and I know I've been mentioning it pretty much every episode, but you have to understand, and I'm going to reiterate this again. I have always loved astrology. Okay. I have always understood it, not to the degree that I understand it now, but definitely more than the average person who's not formally studied astrology. I gravitated toward it very naturally as a child. I now understand that much better now that I've been doing consistent spiritual practice. But I always knew it, but I always just kept it for me and just kept it not even for me in the sense of development. No, it was for just understanding. And then when meeting people, having it's almost kind of let me feel like I had a little bit of an edge. I could, if I knew your sign, I could probably really intuitively understand a little bit more of maybe why you did this or didn't do that or so forth. So it was something I took seriously, but not to the degree where I was literally going to start using it as a practice. And so my spiritual practice now is very, I use astrology as a tool and as a modality to better understand what is going on with me, because I was having difficulty, like I said, really connecting when stress was actually showing up. It's like I had this disconnect, and I'm like, why do I have this emotional kind of disconnect from it? And it's all in my body now. And as I started, it's like, well, I am a Scorpio and I am a Capricorn moon, and Capricorn moons can be a little bit detached and da, 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 da. And so that's when I started realizing, wait, I really need to research this more. And I, had already started to get into it a bit before my 50th in terms of studying, but I decided to take a very advanced training, and that was the game changer. It was a game changer for how I do implement coaching for others. It was a changer for how I implement doing coaching for students, game changer for how I took care of myself and my spiritual practice. And, at the age of 50, learning how to use a different modality and understand spirituality from a different lens is so special, because you have the maturity at this point to do what you got to do for yourself. I don't want to worry about what other people think. I can't, I've said this before. I've had people reach out to me. I've had people email me. I've had people send me DMs, all kinds of things, that were not in support of me doing astrology, that were in fact to encourage me to not do it and get away from it and go more into to Jesus and Christianity, which astrology doesn't take you away from Jesus. I mean, you do whatever you need to do. And so, but I was just like, no, like I'm good. And I was able to really stand strong in it because I fully understand how much blossom is happening in my life and how much peace of mind I have. And so, in this maze of spirituality and of faith and of belief and values and understanding and higher source and God, which is a maze, it can feel very overwhelming and daunting. For me, incorporating this new spiritual practice of really using astrology to fully understand myself, to fully understand my children, to fully understand my relationship with my mother, my relationship with my sister, my relationship with my ex-husband, my current relationship with my partner. I mean, it's just blowing my mind. And it is still blowing my mind. And I'm now getting bigger whispers as I turn 51 saying, go deeper. Go deeper. So there's going to be even more of that, I know. Massive lessons learned spiritually. I'd need a whole separate podcast to go into it, but that's definitely a theme. A third lesson theme is the concept of letting go. Mm. My, oh my, oh my, oh my. Now, listen, I think that I practice a certain level of detachment, um, mainly to, yes, take care of myself, to allow myself to have boundaries. And it's not detachment. And I learned this too. I don't want to use the word detachment, unattachment. Because detachment kind of, I was detached in my self care from my mental and my physical. That was a detach. Unattachment is like a choice. It's a decision. I decide not to attach myself to an outcome or to an expectation. Um, and so letting go has the obvious freedom, maybe connotation, but letting go can also have a lot of fear behind it, right? Can be like, but what if, but what if, but what if? Well, leading up to this 51, I am learning every day what I have to be willing to let go of in terms of actual tasks, activities, relationships, thoughts, practices, behaviors, habits, all kinds of things, stuff. Just really learning that letting go, especially as it relates to people, is a gifting to myself and to them ultimately. It allows each of us to do our journey the way that our journeys need to be done. Letting go of things creates spaciousness. And I do believe that is my new word. Going into 51, my new year of 51 is spaciousness. Where can I create spaciousness in my life, space in my life to breathe, to rest, to laugh, to play, to do creative things, whatever. Okay. And it's the letting go, it's the letting go that affords that spaciousness. And then the next lesson is interdependence in relationships. So, this is where astrology really, really helped me understand myself fully. I have always known, and and this, what I'm about to say has always been difficult for me to explain to others without feeling like I was needy. But I've always known that relationships for me is where I've always felt most connected to myself. I've always known this. It's always been where I learn the most lessons about myself, where I take the most risks, where I learn the most about my tendencies, my shadow side, the things I need to work on. It's always, and it's typically mostly shown up in my romantic relationships. And I've always felt that inside. And when I was young and in my 20s and was dating and was experiencing a relationship in college and so forth. And, I know that I always connected fairly quickly, easily, in terms of romantic relationships. And oh, you have a crush on this guy, a crush on this person. I think I like three people at the same time. And we didn't have words like polyamory, then. And I wish we had, because I would have been able to better understand a little bit of why that was happening. But what I what I always felt so true was that I know I learned so much from relationships. So then I stay in these relationships and I stay so attached and I give up me. I give up my sense of identity. I give up my sense of how I understand myself to be when I get in these relationships. And it drove me crazy. And, something that I really, even in my marriage was very difficult for me because I felt like I constantly had to get small, diminish myself for the good of the relationship, right? And wanted to feel independent, wanted to feel autonomous and all that and be still partnered, but didn't know how. And this past year, and really particularly in my current relationship, I've brought my partner on the podcast before, Barry. And Barry and I have a really, I don't talk a lot about our relationship outside of when he's with me, and we may talk about things. And I'm not going to start all that today, but I will say this: it's a relationship that has taught me about independence. It's a relationship that's taught me how to love deeply and commit deeply, and for us, to that person, and do the same for myself, and do the same of the nurturing that I need to do to show up as Kenya in this relationship, not to show up as a little bit of Kenya to accommodate, a little bit of Barry to accommodate, not, to fully show up as me. And it's been through our learning, our, disagreeing, our having to go manage conflict, our loving, our doing all of those things that has really taught me. And overall, it's just taught me the importance of being into independent within our relationship. So still being in relationship, but keeping your independence. And I think as women, particularly because of the way we're conditioned, because of the way society has been formed in this patriarchy and how we have existed previously, this idea of our true independence while in relationship is very, very muddy and not taught and not discussed. It's not just about getting a job and being married, or, not being a stay-at-home mom or having your own friends. That's kind of a layer. That's the obvious. There's more, there's the emotional independence. the emotional freedom, the emotional ability to say, this is what I need. And I'm going to do what I need to do for me. And I'm going to love you. And I'm going to keep honoring what I need to do only for me. And I think that turning 51 and having the maturity and having the life experience, intellectually, I think we all kind of know this, but being able to really practice it with in safety, huge, huge. Because that then helped me become more independent in the relationship with my children, allowing them, to be who they are becoming and not attempt to overstep or overguide, but to sit on the outside, to have a flashlight, and when asked, turn the flashlight on. Here's a little blind spot, sweetie. Let me help you out there. You may want to consider this. It's on you. You decide. And again, it affords them their independence and it affords me my independence in that relationship. So huge, huge lesson in navigating this midlife maze so far. And then this is the last thing that I wanted to talk about, and it may seem a little silly or superficial, but it has a lot of meaning. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, you will see me. You may notice that my hair has been different. And so I'm going to talk about this. I put as my fifth theme, I am not my hair. And as a Black woman, um, there's obviously been a lot for many years now and will continue to talk about our hair and the significance of how our hair impacts so much of our livelihood in so many ways. And without me going through and give a dissertation on all of that, this is what I will say and how this relates to lessons learned. And really how it also relates to the letting go, the self-care, the interdependence, to spiritual practice. It's all tied in. At the same time, I am not my hair. It is just my hair. So I now have sister locks. And if you're not familiar with what sister locks are, they are a type of lock. So you have the faux locks. I used to wear a lot of faux locks. Those were the long locks, goddess locks. You hear people, that wasn't on my hair. You have people you call dreadlocks, or I don't usually say dread, I just say locks, the thicker locks. And sister locks, you have micro locks, but sister locks is a very specific technique that is done to lock the individual strands of your hair. So they're very, very thin locks. Okay. The thing is this, once you get and you can get them installed on wherever length your hair is at. So you don't have to do the big chop and then grow your hair out in a lock. You actually, the loctician manually interweaves and does this interwoven technique and manually locks each strand of your hair. So listen, and it's a permanent deal, right? It's locked. Now, technically, you could do some things to untangle it, and that could take you 3 years to get out or whatever. Not literally 3 years, but it takes a long time. But for the most part, it's a quite a permanent style. And I've wanted to do some form of locks for years, but was always just too afraid. And I was afraid of the permanence. I was afraid, oh, I'm not going to be able to have my hair in big afros. Oh, I won't be able to, when I want to straighten my hair. Oh, I won't be able, all the limitations. Okay, you see where I'm going, right? All the scarcity, right, of what this hairstyle was going to do to me. Now, what was going to happen if I couldn't wear loose hair? I couldn't get past that. I just knew, oh, chicken little, that's all I could go. And I want to say, I don't know, I think it might have been my cousin. I watched her process on IG of her going through her sister lock journey. And she's my younger cousin. She's a second cousin. And shout out to you, Artanza, whose father is going to be on my podcast coming up soon before the year ends. But at any rate, I watched her go through it and I watched her level of patience, her comedy behind it. and her beauty. Oh my gosh, just it was just blooming. And then I just started, I have a few friends who have locks. And then one of my dear friends here in Chicago, she and I had met up for brunch with another friend, and she had officially gotten her micro locks, which are very similar to sister locks. And when I saw how just full and how free, and she was just saying all the good stuff about, I was like, okay, that's it. I am getting these locks. I'm getting them. I'm getting them. And so then I start doing my research, and I'm calling and talking to people who have sister locks, and but then I started getting scared again. I said, just table it, girl. Just table it. But this past summer, and I now know, again, astrologically, we went through a Venus retrograde, and Venus is related to our relationships and our relationship to beauty and our relationship to ourself, and creativity and arts and fashion and all of that. And I didn't say, "Ooh, Venus retrograde, let's go do sister locks." I didn't do that at all. But there was an energy inside of me that was like, "It's time. It's time." And I can't say what the light switch moment was, but I knew that by June I felt clear. It's time. And so in August, I went ahead and did it. And so now I am approaching in a couple of weeks from the time, yeah, from this airing. Um, I'm getting close. I'm 2.5 months in, basically. I'm getting close to my 3 months. And wow, I realize in seeing myself different, seeing myself not in loose, natural hair, but just seeing myself in this lock states and watching my hair change each week. It's been so freeing and beautiful. And then when you have sister locks, you don't got to comb. There's no comb. There's no products. No products. Nope. Literally, I spritz a little water on my hair every day, every other day or so. That's it. Shake it. I might twist it at night, just like two strands, just to get a little bit of fullness, or I might braid and band or what. But for the most part, when I just wear it, it's just there. And it really has just taught me so much more about freedom, and that all this waxing and waning, and I've been natural for over 2 decades, for like 24 years. So I understand the freedom of no longer doing things to manipulate your hair to not be the texture that your hair is. I've really come to really accept the texture of my hair. But this for me was the next level, the deepening, right? Again, let me go deeper into acceptance of my beauty, of me being just me, and that this is a hairstyle, and it has the ability to afford me freedom. At the same time, it doesn't make up all of who I am. I am who I am. And so, as I begin to now wrap up, the 5 lessons again that I've learned in this midlife maze, navigating as I approach turning 51 this weekend at the time that this is initially released. 5 big lessons: self care, spiritual practice, letting go, interdependence in relationships, and I am not my hair. And so in astrology, I'm now entering the fourth house perfection year when we turn 51. All of you that are 51, whatever your fourth house is, it might be a little bit more emphasis on family. And this is why 51 for all of us, um, family and relationships in all shapes and sizes, are going to be more deepened. And we'll see. We'll just see. Um, I'm feeling grateful. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling overwhelmed many times. I will say that I've had a lot of close people, very, very close to me, people that I love very dearly, going through a lot, whether it be with their health, physical health, mental health, emotional health, relationships, um, a lot of loss, a lot of change. And, I too have had all of these shifts and things. And so I just will continue to be prayerful and still and meditate and send as much love as I could possibly send out into the ether, um, for us all to grab onto it so that we may have the bandwidth and the courage to really look within ourselves and be who we came here to be. So that's the end of this particular episode. We're going to be back again next week with more interviews. And I will be back again doing another solo episode soon. But we got another special. I have a part 2 to that parenting over 40 that's coming in December. But I believe come January, I'll be returning more with my solo episodes. So thanks for listening. And those who've been sending early birthday wishes, thank you. I received them all. And no, I ain't going on no vacation. I'm not going on no trip. I am chilling on this birthday. And I'm looking forward to it. All right. You guys have an amazing day and week. Bye.